Okay, thank you. Thank you, members joining us virtually, and any members of the public. Welcome to the what is, in actual fact, the final executive meeting of this term, Thursday, the 6th of April 23. Let's begin with apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't received any apologies.
Okay, so I note that Councillor Page is not with us, but we haven't had his apologies, so he may be showing up late. Okay. Right. Minutes. Members of the executive, are we happy to confirm that I signed the minutes of the last meeting, 14th of March?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any declarations of interest from any members on the executive, or any members joining us for the issues that we're going to be discussing this evening? No. Okay, thank you. All right, item 4, questions by members. Are there any questions for myself as leader or any portfolio holder from members of which matters relate to the executive function? No. Okay, thank you. So we'll take our first item, which is tree strategy and action plan. Councillor Jennings-Evans.
Thank you, Leader. Members, I'm pleased to put before you today the proposed Surrey Heath Tree Strategy. This is a document that is designed to raise the profile of not only the benefits of trees, but also to explain how the borough intends to look after their current stock. This year saw 5,140 trees planted within the borough through succession planting. Existing tree coverage is monitored so that we can maintain and look benefits from. Okay, the document is intended to not only explain how we look after the trees, but also to raise the awareness of not only the benefits of trees, but the responsibility for everyone in caring for our trees. It brings together current legislative responsibilities along with new and emerging legislation. As an example, how we encourage developers to have tree-lined streets within developments and enhanced replacement planting, seeing 2 trees replaced over rather than 1 on 1. The strategy looks to enhance the understanding in people of all ages as to the importance of trees, and has launched in partnership with the Museum Education Programme and the Surrey Heath Tree Wardens an education package that schools can book. The action plan attached to the strategy is fluid and as a working document will adapt and evolve, capturing different projects as new areas of work are identified, schemes are brought forward and offsetting projects are required by developers. The strategy was developed internally using best practice and in consultation with the planning team, Green Space team and Climate Change Officer. Consultees included the Climate Change Working Group along with the Surrey Heath Tree Wardens. It is a thorough document that will be made available to show Surrey Heath's commitment to maintaining its position as the highest tree cover of any local authority in the UK with 36.1%, as reported in The Guardian in 2023. I would therefore ask that the Executive agree to resolve to adopt this important and excellent strategy. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Jennings-Evans. I guess we're happy to answer any questions about the paper. Anything from any members? No? Okay. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Leader. Really, it's an observation more than a question. I mean, I'm clearly very pleased to see this. Having worked on climate change, not climate change, or even climate change and what have you. Trees do create their own problems. Certainly, if they're not planted in a careful way, and it's the type of tree. I don't suppose Councillor Tapper's on, because I was expecting him to come in and give the tale of woe that exists on Heatherside because of the trees that have been planted and pavements lifted and foundations damaged, and roots do go under houses. And it's also the trees on verges, which I know is a county issue, which I'm not totally bought in on every case, I have to say. because they create their own dangers. And I would like to have seen greater emphasis on hedgerows. Whilst mentioned in here, I mean, I think in many cases a hedgerow creates a better atmosphere. It's better for climate, and it's just easy maintained. And I think it's prettier in many ways if you can classify a hedgerow as pretty. So really, it's pleased to see it, but those are just observations from me. Thank you, Dina.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hawkins. All right, all right. Okay, I have one, Councillor Jennings. Oh, does he? Sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Malvaginam. Okay,
Go on.
Sasha, you're still on mute.
Can we say Okay, thank you, Councillor Malvaginam. Councillor Jennings-Evans, how does this fit into our strategy? I think he said 2015. But...
Yeah, it's actually 2030.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously this is going to be a positive benefit because it's going to reduce carbon emission into the atmosphere. So of course it will, but it's probably more a question for the climate change group. But I can say that it will have a positive benefit purely on the basis of the carbon emissions.
Thank you. Okay, I always like to give the questioner a chance to come back. Councillor Malvaginam. Okay, thank you. I can say that just simply planting trees isn't going to get us to carbon neutral by 2030. There has to be a lot of change around that as well. What I can say was this council set a target of planting 4,000 new trees in the borough this financial year or planting season, and we're going to be much closer to 5,000. In fact, we're going to be roughly 5,140 by the end of the planting season, which I think you'd agree is not a bad, target given the fact that it was 4,000 we were aiming for, and it was sort of 2,000 originally. So a huge effort on that. But you by all means talk to the climate officer, but I doubt you're going to get a number of trees that we need to plant by 2030. Okay. Any other questions on the paper? I've got one, but I just want to make sure everybody gets in. No? Okay. Well, maybe I've answered it. Yeah. Okay. So my one was the officers will want to use the strategy going forward. They want to be able to refer to it so that it's part of the thinking of the council. And this sounds a bit trite, and I don't mean it to be, but this is very, very pro-tree, right? But as with many, many things, you've got to balance, development, the needs for housing. I can think of, there was a good example, Councillor Hawkins just mentioned about trees that are planted in a place where they're lifting things that could be damaging houses, etc. And there's no real mention within the strategy of the fact that inevitably some trees will have to be cut down. And my concern is this is so pro-tree that officers would struggle to find any reference to. Occasionally, it's inevitable that trees have to be cut down. If you're going to build affordable housing and trees are in the wrong place,
I would hate for this policy to be used to say, well, you can't build that housing, or you can't put up solar panels because your house is in the shade from a tree that actually could and should be cut down. So I wonder if you would agree that that perhaps could be strengthened in there. I'm not saying let's make it 50-50, right? What I'm saying is inevitably some trees have to be cut down. And this document is so pro-tree that I think it might give the officers trouble in the future about doing that. Would you be open to adding that in as opposed to changing something?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to take that on board. At the end of the day, this is supposed to be a sort of a living document, and we're going to be reviewing it annually. So any kind of amendments as we go along could be discussed and agreed as necessary. And I agree with you, where appropriate, that needs to be taken into consideration.
Okay. Thank you. So I would say then, what I'd like to do is to pick up on the points that were made. Councillor Malvaginam made the point about how does this fit into our strategy for carbon neutral, right? Although I think as I said, I think we'd struggle with how many trees does it take to get us to carbon neutral. Probably carpet bomb the entire Surrey Heath with trees, you still wouldn't make it. So we have to cut emissions, not just do that. So, but I'd like to see that strengthened. I'd like to see what Councillor Hawkins mentioned about, I think it does mention hedgerows as well as trees, and maybe that needs strengthened. And finally, and I think he made a good point about care when planting. Right? It isn't just a case of anywhere we could put trees up is fine. If you look in London Road Rec, for instance, a lot of the trees are lifting the path, and in fact, if they had been planted another 6 or 8 feet further in from the path, we wouldn't have had that problem. So I think as well, just I'd say, if the executive is accepting of this, I'd like to delegate responsibility to the officer in conjunction with the portfolio holder, that you just pick up those points and look to put the appropriate wording into the document. Okay?
Yep, I'm looking at Nick, he's nodding at me. Yep, we'd be happy to take that on board.
All right. Oh, fine. Okay, Councillor Wheeler? That's okay. I recognise your voice, Councillor Wheeler. Okay, I think that's a good idea. We're happy. I've got Councillor Jennings-Evans is nodding as well. So we'll add that in. Okay? So if there are no other questions or points on the tree and hedgerow strategy, okay, then members of the executive, okay, the recommendation is that we're advised to resolve that the tree strategy and action plan as set out in Annex A to the report be adopted. Are we agreed? Right, that's with the amendments. Okay, thank you. All right, property acquisition and disposal strategy. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Leader. This report sets out Surrey Heath Borough Council's strategy for the acquisition and disposal of property. In particular, it reflects the latest guidance from the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, and specifically the Council should only acquire and dispose of property to support their regeneration and economic development aims. It confirms that acquisitions should be confined to within the borough. The strategy accords with the Council's medium-term financial strategy and the wider goals of the Council's 5-year strategy, and will assist in the aim of achieving financial stability to deliver high-quality service to the residents and businesses of the borough. Potential property acquisitions are considered from time to time, and in particular discussions are progressing on site assembly acquisitions within the London Road block. This paper is being brought forward now so that potential acquisitions can be considered and executed with the benefit of an up-to-date strategy. As well as the expanding on the regulatory and strategic context, this document sets out some sound principles for evolving property portfolios and for the acquisition and disposal process. Accordingly, I recommend it for your approval.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Any questions on the property acquisition and disposal strategy paper? Let me just take Councillor Hawkins and then Councillor Perry.
I don't understand the question.
Okay, Councillor Hawkins, that's duly noted.
Okay,
Councillor Perry and then Councillor Mulvaginam.
Thank you, Leader. The strategy states that all assets should produce a defined return or be disposed of if they fail to make that expected return. I'm concerned that such a rigid approach could hinder our plans on some of the larger schemes. I think we need to provide for a situation where we may purchase an asset that may not initially provide the normally expected return upon purchase, but could, by way of its ownership, facilitate regeneration of a larger area with an expected return over several years. So we need to be a bit more flexible in how we define the criteria.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you a good example of that, to be honest, Councillor Perry. We bought a house in Camberley for the Hope Hub to turn it into a homeless shelter, which is doing an absolutely cracking job, and you know, it's taking people off the street and it's helping them turn their lives around. But that house did not produce any kind of return, and yet it was essential for the council to buy it. So if that's not sufficiently written up in this strategy, I think it definitely should be. So we'll take a note of that. Councillor Mulvaginam. I'm not sure whether I should tell you, Sashi, but you're still on mute. Thank you, Councillor Mulvaginam. Okay, it almost feels like somebody said that before, and you know, you and I are in violent agreement about that. Okay, any other points, questions on the paper? No. Okay, so I'd like to pick up those 2 points then. Or 3 points. I've got one. So. Councillor Garrett, taking Councillor Malvaginum's point, right, I think that it's right that we put emphasis on the fact that everything we buy is for regeneration or for the good of the borough, for sustaining employment or SANGs or regeneration, whatever it's going to be, in order to do that. But we're also very cognizant of the fact that it has to cover its cost, and it has to wash its face, all right? And typically that's in the region of a 2% return over and above all other costs, okay? So taking that point separately, would you be agreeable to us delegating the wording to the officers in conjunction with you? And I'd suggest Councillor Perry to agree that that is just strengthened up in the document, okay? The second one is taking Councillor Perry's point that you're absolutely right. I think, Councillor Perry, there are times when we buy things which are not there for just simply the return, like the Hope Hub homeless shelter. Great buy, but it was never going to make a return. Okay, so that I think should also be in there to pick up his point. And the other thing is, I think the thing I was surprised at in the paper was that it's kind of taken for granted that everything we're doing is for the long-term strategy. But it doesn't really lay out that this is all of our strategy. You know, it says we won't buy outside the borough. We'll only buy for regeneration. We'll only buy for the benefit of the residents. We'll only, you know, we won't take properties and flip them in order to make some money for the council. But it only refers to the 5-year strategy or the medium-term financial strategy, which are both 4 and 5 years, when in fact we've bought the square for intention of holding it for 50. So I think if the executive are in agreement, I'd like to delegate those points to the officer with yourself and Councillor Perry, just to agree the wording, just to strengthen that strategy. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I'm happy to agree all three of those points. We can take them away and we can reword it so the document shows those.
And Councillor Perry, I've just given you a job. You okay with that? You thought you were almost finished, but yeah, not quite. Okay, good. All right, thank you. All right, so if there are no other questions on that, all right, then members of the executive were advised to resolve that the property acquisition and disposal strategy as attached to Annex A to this report, along with the amendments we just talked about, be approved. Agreed? Okay, thank you. All right. Now that takes us to item 7, which is the exclusion of the press and public. We're about to go into part 2, where we'll discuss matters that are commercially sensitive for the council or for suppliers. So I'd just like to thank any members of the public